Imagine for a moment a world without art, without dance, opera, literature, poetry. That world would be a very, very dull place.
Today on the show, we have Dave Burlingame, an internationally traveling musician who has toured as a bassist for Terrapin Flyer, 4,000 headmen or 40,000 headmen and Railheart. But he is most known for his banjo skills as a banjo player, vocalist, and songwriter for a staple of the grass jam genre in the Midwest, Cornmeal. He has played at the Telluride Bluegrass Festival, Mongolia Fest, Wakarusa Music Festival, Summer Camp Music Festival, and he has performed at multiple stages at Bonnaroo, All Good Music Festival, High Sierra Music Festival, 10,000 Lakes, and so many more. Wanted to definitely get him on the show today because Cornmeal is celebrating their 20th anniversary as a band. And, if you have been living under a rock for the last 20 years, it's a pretty long time, make sure to check out their studio album, Slow Street, which was released in 2015 and is a phenomenal acoustic album. And also visit their website if you haven't heard of them before. That'll be cornmealinthekitchen.com. And, folks, they have a plethora of live recordings, concerts. I was jamming out to them all day in preparation. Dave, thanks for coming on the show.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
Oh, absolutely. So, 20 years, that is a milestone. First off, I want to thank you for coming on the show as well as congratulating you on that 20-year benchmark.
Well, hey, thanks a lot for having me and, talking about the band and whatnot. Yeah, 20 years sounds like a long time, but when you're doing it, it doesn't seem like 20 years. It doesn't seem like that long a time,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I was late to the game getting into you guys because
Wait, you're only, what, 25? How old are you?
I'm only 35 or so, but the first time that I had actually come across you guys was at summer camp in 2009. And,
Okay.
I hadn't heard of you guys before, so I ended up over by the, it was the big group with T-shirts. I want to say they were the Corn Jerkers, but I know that's not the group they were.
Corn Stalk.
Yeah, the Corn Stalkers. I was actually talking with them, and, it was such like a great group of people that I just had to, write down your name and then backtrack and, go back, listen to all your albums since 2000. And, even a lot of those like smaller EPs you guys were putting out, the songs are just phenomenal.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
So let me ask you, I don't know, what really wanted you to get into music? Was it something that was kind of, forced on you as a kid, or is it something that you just kind of developed into and had a natural interest in?
I've always had a natural interest. I remember growing up as a kid in my bedroom was the old like console stereo with a turntable.
Mm-hmm.
And this little reed organ, there's a little electric organ from Sears or J.C. Penney's or something like that. And, I would listen to records and play along, so I had kind of natural ear for it.
Oh, awesome.
When I was 9 years old, my dad came home with a snare drum that he bought at a garage sale. And so I took interest in that, started banging on it. They got me drum lessons for a couple of years. And then, in public school, you start playing a recorder. I think it's fourth grade.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
An instrument, right. And I picked saxophone. I played saxophone, tenor sax, and alto sax a little bit from fifth grade till I graduated high school. About when I turned 17, I guess, in high school, in one of the practice rooms at the high school, there was a bass sitting there with an amplifier, and I kind of taught myself how to play a little bass and got a little lessons in that.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as banjo, I didn't pick that up till I was about 30 years old.
Really?
So it'll give you. I just celebrated my 52nd birthday a couple weeks ago.
Wow. See, you gave me a lot of hope then because, I started playing the banjo at the age of 30, and I was
Yeah.
just god awful at it. I couldn't figure it out one way or another. So I switched over to the mandolin, and just it being in perfect fifths and everything lining up, just made a lot more sense to me as opposed to, the 5-string banjo. I mean, man,
Yeah.
some of those scales are just chaos.
It's not like any other stringed instrument. The approach, if you're 3-finger style or even like your clawhammer style, whatever have you, it's like from another planet, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah. I mean,
I have a lot of musician friends, obviously,
yeah,
and
yeah.
most guitarists will try banjo at one point or another. They just don't stick with it. I don't know if it takes some patience and perseverance. It's like one of those things. When it gets a hold of you, it, but not for everyone. But I'm fortunate, that I stuck with it. I love playing the banjo, and it's
Yeah.
it's a little different than in approach for sure than most stringed instruments.
Well, I guess, I mean, when you were young, did you always did you always listen to bluegrass and folk music, or was
A little.
that, an interest that kind of came later as you kind of developed into it?
Well, I got more into it as I grew. But my dad had an eclectic taste in music. My parents are in their 80s now, so a little too old to be hippies, but more bohemian, beatnik types. So
Right, right.
age I was listening to jazz and a little bit of blues, some bluegrass. Really, not much rock and roll. My parents didn't really. They were into the Beatles, or they weren't into Elvis and popular music so much. But I got exposed at a young age to a lot of different styles of music. And I think at one time my dad had a banjo that he bought and never really played much. It sort of hung on the wall. So that sort of interested me in banjo. And then later on in my early 20s, I guess, I started getting into the Grateful Dead. And I learned that
Yeah.
Jerry Garcia played banjo, and listened to the Old and in the Way album. I'm like, it got its hooks in me. And that was when I decided I was going to get a banjo, and went to a used music store, and for $200 I got a pretty decent beginner banjo with a case, picks, and an instruction book.
And you were well on your way.
Yeah, right. So for about a year I played in my bedroom until I felt I was about ready to start playing with other people. And lo and behold, the original fiddle player in the band Cornmeal, he brought me in when the band was just starting, before we had drums or anything. It was just an acoustic little, completely acoustic, traditional style bluegrass band with
Mhm.
good songwriters already in it, and eventually I started writing songs with the band as well and stuff. So, but, uh,
So, I guess when you, I mean, just to say, the shift from the bass to the banjo is a heck of a shift. Did you focus on like more guitar or anything in between those two?
I've always had a guitar laying around, but I just strum. I never really pursued it much.
Yeah.
The bass gets your hips moving, and that's what I like in music, and drums. And but it's after playing banjo for so long, with Cornmeal, when we were in our prime there, we were playing 175 shows a year,
Oh
and there
yeah.
wasn't time for anything else other than touring. And when you get home, you'd have maybe a week off and then right back onto the next tour. So I really wasn't playing much bass at all. And then when our schedule kind of slowed down, I started playing with Terrapin Flyer a little bit more. And then we've been together for 20 years now as well. But what I noticed was I kind of altered my bass playing. When I was always like a 2-finger kind of guy, purist, don't play with a pick, and this.
Yeah, yeah.
I started back from banjo. I started kind of incorporating that style of playing bass. Sometimes like 3-finger rolls, or just
Yeah, yeah.
first finger, doing fast stuff like that. And then I'm like, well, what does a pick sound like? So about 5 or 6 years ago, I started using a pick, and I realized, because when I play bass, I play a lot of Grateful Dead music, no matter what the band is. And then, before the pandemic, I was steadily playing in about 6 different bands.
Yeah.
And the pick, it became a new instrument for me, just a different approach with the bass. Like even like the 3-finger, like just using my thumb and my first finger, or just my thumb instead of just 2 fingers on the bass. The banjo really did affect the way I approached the bass as well. you know. And I would, and it's funny because it seems like bass players over guitarists or any other instrument get the banjo. I mean, you look at like Les Claypool,
Mhm.
Gordon from Fish. They're both bass players that also play a banjo as well. And maybe it's ironic that I play a 5-string bass and the banjo is 5 strings as well. I don't know. They're obviously tuned differently. They sound a lot different.
Yeah, I mean, well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's that not that much of a stretch to go because, like you said, so many of the finger movements and motions are the same kind of rolls. I mean, have you ever tried maybe tuning that 5-string bass like a banjo? Have you experimented with that at all?
Well, no, the banjo has the top string. The 5th string is actually it's one of the highest strings. It's a drone string that you hit in between other chordal stuff. It
Right,
doesn't
right.
get fretted a lot, so I'd have to like put a lighter string actually on the bass. I haven't tried that, but I've got a couple of basses. Maybe I should try something like that. Maybe like a bass banjo. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I mean, it'd be interesting, and I'm all about experimentation.
Uh,
So I guess kind of backtracking a little bit. Now, you had mentioned that the Grateful Dead was one of the bands that just kind of opened your eyes to the different possibilities of what music could be. And
yeah,
I mean, I would say, without a doubt, going down in history as the most covered band in the history of all bands, because everybody I know has played a Grateful Dead cover at one point or another.
yeah,
So
right.
let me ask you, did you like get into the Dead first, or was it more of did you like stumble onto it through Jerry Garcia band?
Well, I got into it first. Some friends of mine, I guess I was about 20 years old, starting to play in some rock bands out of high school, and one guy was a Deadhead, and he would give me a bootleg, every
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
weeks. Listening, like that's cool, and we played a couple of their songs, and eventually he ended up taking me to some shows, and I just like it was like it opened my mind to a lot of different ways of thinking about life. Even like
Yeah.
there's the Grateful Dead adage is like dance like no one's looking. It's like because no one is looking at you. I remember that striking me the most at a Grateful Dead show. Like I did 2 shows on 2 nights in a row, and looking around, no one's watching anyone dance. They're just doing their own thing, and it felt just liberating. Like I didn't have to conform to anything.
Yeah.
I could just be myself, and I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to the Grateful Dead because you can just be yourself, and it seems like you're accepted. And it's other people are in a club. And I mean, I started growing dreadlocks and wearing tie dyes and patchouli all the time. And I'd work day jobs and plan my vacations around going to tour with the Grateful Dead. Yeah, it just that's the lifestyle and just the feeling that there is more than what the status quo allows, and more ways of free opening me up to free thinking, I think as well. And I would
Yeah.
say that was that first bootleg that was bestowed upon me. That was the key that really turned things around in my life. I'm sure I was going to go into mechanical drafting. I was going to be an engineering drawing major in college. And I remember just sitting there like in a classroom, like I'm going to be behind a desk in an office. you know, uh, that doesn't sound like what I want to do, And so I guess that also pushed me to pursue music more, you
Yeah.
know, and through,
Yeah.
hard work and a lot of, lucky breaks as well as, Cornmeal was able to travel. Well, we did 48 states. We played 48 states in those 20 years that, we've been playing. And I think that says a lot.
Yeah. Everywhere
People
but
ask me, well, where you been? I'm like, well, name it, name a city. And I've pretty much been there, near there, or
yeah.
whatever happened. It's a beautiful country we live in. A lot of it's undeveloped, and I've met a lot of amazing people along the way. And just can't believe the support. And I think it's a noble trade that I'm in is performing music for people that helps them forget about their troubles for a minute. And I really can't wait to get back to it. And
Yeah.
it's really scary the times we're living in right now with this pandemic shutting down live music because friends and business owners are losing their businesses. We just played that benefit last night. I was telling you, with Terrapin Flyer. It's a benefit for a club called Martyrs here in Chicago, and it's been a mainstay for at least 25 years. I guess mid 90s is when they started up, with the live music, and that's where the band Dark Star Orchestra got their start. And I remember going to see them back in the late 90s. That's when they could still smoke indoors. And everyone there was smoking about 3 to 4 packs of cigarettes. And it was difficult to get past the first set because with your eyes are burning, just hearing, even though they had 4 industrial size smoke heaters, it was just a little too much. But yeah, so we're and throughout the years, just about every band I played with has played at Martyrs. It's my home away from home. I'm really good friends with the owner and the people that work there, and just anytime I go in there, I had permanent guest list status. Just because of all the shows I played and just the friends I've made there.
Yeah.
It's like if I can do anything to help, I really don't want to see that club go in Chicago, as well as a lot of other clubs. So that's what we're doing right now. And I think we're going to try to do another live stream with Terrapin Flyer again in about 2 weeks too.
Yeah, and I would say that, at this point where we are with the pandemic, with, all the protests and riots, I mean, everyone's just kind of on edge. Everyone's divided. It is at this point in time, people need music the most, because if it's one thing that unifies, I'll just use it as an example. It's one thing that can bring some hardcore, Christian conservatives and some far left liberals together. It is good bluegrass music, because it just cuts down all those cultural barriers. Because I don't know, at least for me, bluegrass, it's one of the, it descends from one of the oldest, genres in American history. And it's like just listening to pure, unfiltered American culture, just at the root of what it means to be an American, whether it's like those old like Irish folk ballads, or just it just strikes a nerve.
Well, bluegrass is a combination of Irish fiddle music and blues music.
Yeah,
it really is a melding of two separate genres that became distinctly American, like jazz music or the blues or whatever have you. America is a melting pot of music, and such creativity and ingenuity, and it's, it does get everyone up. I read once somewhere that there are 3 V's of bluegrass: virtue, vitality, and vigor. That gets you up and gets you moving. I'll tell you what, man, you don't want to, we played a lot of bluegrass fest where people bring their lawn chairs, but they're not sitting in them very long once we start getting them playing. They're down front dancing. That's where we like to see people as well.
Oh, absolutely. I forget where I read it. It was an article I was reading, and it was just about the parallels of the history of the banjo and the history of America, and just how banjo in itself started off as one of the earliest stringed instruments in Africa, with the gourd and the different strings and that, and how it was transplanted over here through slave trade and the such, and it was just planted in all these different cultural areas, whether it's the West, or whether it's Virginia, West Virginia, but just all along the coastline. So since the inception of this country, the banjo has been there playing its anthem one way or another.
Yeah, evidently, like in the mid 1600s is when it first made its appearance in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And the slave trade was brought here that way, and then it was adopted, and it's just a cord and a board with a couple strings up. So I think only about 3 to 4 strings actually originally, no frets. But it was a tuned to an open chord and played in like a frailing style. So you have percussion and you also have melody as well. So it's kind of like 2 instruments kind of in one.
Yeah. Well, and that makes sense, because primarily, just the banjo and fiddle music that was in the old dance parties, like the, I don't know, the banjo, it just fills in so much space. You know what I mean? It makes it sound like, it just makes, even with 2 guys up there, it makes it sound like it's a fuller sound.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So I guess I mean when you started getting into banjo and started learning about it, I mean which style did you prefer right off the bat? Did you try to learn how to claw hammer first, or were you always pretty strict on the three fingers?
I tried both at first and realized that the three finger style required a little bit more attention, so I concentrated on that and then sort of let the clawhammer go by the way. And that's something I brought back into my playing within the last year or so. You know, and it's a lot different. Yeah, definitely a lot different. There's different tunings as well.
Hmm.
I was completely different, but you don't have to wear picks, and you can kind of bring that anywhere. So like I just have a little old lightweight banjo that I tag around, like carry with me. I can take it down to the beach or
Yeah,
out
yeah.
anywhere outside I want to. I don't have to worry about it. And yeah, the claw hammer is fun. It's more guitar-ish sounding, where you're not picking every individual note. You can strum. You're galloping, and the claw hammer. Like I said, the claw hammers. It's different. It's more. I guess you're always keeping like a rhythm, and then you're
Yeah,
adding
right.
on. So that is a little bit more like two instruments than I would say like the Scruggs or the three finger style.
Yeah, I love clawhammer style, primarily when you get into like those different minors and stuff,
Mm,
because it just
yeah.
sounds like that dark bayou music. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, right. And it was listening to Doc Watson recordings that really got me into
Oh
clawhammer.
yeah.
John Merle was like the clawhammer player that played with him a lot. Just the two of them was like just so much sound just out of a couple instruments.
So again, well, you mentioned Doc Watson. What were some other artists, or particularly other banjo players that you kind of identified with and kind of looked up to as you were learning the craft?
Well, Ralph Stanley, of course, Earl
Yeah.
Scruggs, of course, the traditional styles. But I also got into Tony Trischka and Bela Fleck. Not
I
so
love
much the
Black.
right. Yeah, he's amazing. We played one time down in Florida, Magnolia Fest. That's in Sewanee. That's at the Wani Day of what that there. The Allman Brothers used to have a little festival there,
Mhm.
um, Spring Fest. But we were down there, and the Flecktones were there, and Bela Fleck sat in with us.
Wow.
He stood right just to my right side, and I tell you, that was the most nerve wracking. Just oh my god, I pooped my pants twice. Here's my solo, and I play it, and it's just like there's Bela Fleck just watching everything I'm doing. I'm like, oh my god, don't look at him, don't look at him. I got through my solo, and it was great. He's like, okay, it's yours. It's like, okay, let me show you how it's done. I swear, for almost 2 days, I didn't talk to anyone. I was just so affected by that performance. But Bela Fleck is such a nice guy, and he was just so nice about it and encouraging as well.
Oh, that is awesome. They always tell you don't meet your heroes, but I love those examples that they're just stand-up guys.
Yeah,
So,
right.
so did you get a chance to kind of hang out with him after the show, get to know him a little bit, or was
Yes, yeah,
he?
and other festivals as well that we ended up in the same circuit. So after I wouldn't say we're friends, but yeah, we've met several times, and
That's
just
awesome.
really, genuinely nice person. He's really great, and I really like the stuff that he did with Zakir Hussain and Edgar Meyer, this trio. We got to play not with them, but at the same festival at High Sierra one year out in Northern
Mhm.
California, and that was just like, you normally don't hear tabla and banjo together, but with Edgar Meyer, man, they just made it really happen, and it's really amazing. And playing with Cornmeal, we're not traditional. We do traditional style bluegrass, but we've always incorporated rock elements and
Oh
blues
yeah.
elements, a jam band element, to things, and just that improvisational thing. So, uh, and using effects and amplifiers and stuff, I'm able to get a lot of different sounds that you normally don't hear the banjo playing, and
Yeah.
my playing, I think, is more my signature style than my lead playing. Whereas like I kind of approach my rhythm playing when someone else playing more like a rhythm guitar, where I just lightly strum chords, and I'm not just shucking and um, just keeping time with the banjo, but I'm adding other layers as well,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's the one thing that I think kind of differentiates that like traditional bluegrass from that wave of I don't know if I'd want to necessarily call you guys new grass or not, but I mean that's definitely like a distinction, is that you're willing to incorporate all the different elements of roots music together and to
Yeah.
just make it something unique and fresh.
Yeah, I think that's what we always strive to do, and in our songwriting as well. And like, but then again, on the reverse is like the cover tunes. We'd play a lot of rock songs, like Sheep by Pink Floyd.
Yeah, yeah.
The we kind of made it a double time little bluegrass song, but the segues and all the different intricate parts of the song we still captured the same way, and as the album, and we tried to do like David Bowie and Elton John, some Doobie Brothers, Metallica at times,
Oh yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Like,
those are some
ring
of
the
my
bell for us.
favorite. Those are some of my favorite covers. Is when like what was that band Iron Horse that that remixed they did an entire Metallica album bluegrass style, but then they also did an Ozzy Osbourne tribute that was just phenomenal, because I don't, just seeing like and to a lesser extent I would say Johnny Cash with that Hurt song as well. When you see a cover that's done across genre, it just makes you appreciate that song in a different way that you wouldn't be able to know before.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people cover a song and just want to do it just the way the original artist did. And there's something to be said for that too. But making it your own, making it something completely new, there's more to be said about that, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, we'll just use Dark Star Orchestra as an example. I mean, when
Mhm.
when you go see Dark Star play, like they are recreating a set most of the time, note for note, and then and like I didn't realize that's what they were doing. After the first time I saw them, I looked into them a little bit more, and then when I've seen them since then, you just have a much more profound appreciation for what they're doing, particularly their timing. Because I mean, recreating a Grateful Dead set, I mean, talk about nuanced.
Yeah, and like, the band had a 30-year career with Jerry Garcia,
Right.
and it's from the 1965 to 95. And it's so funny. I play a lot of Grateful Dead now, and there were lineup changes a lot. There were a lot of lineup changes throughout the years, and a lot of different styles that they covered. When they first started out, they were playing blues and very experimental psychedelic stuff.
Mhm.
And then within 5 years, they're playing a lot of country music and writing a lot of country music. The Working Man's Dead album and the
Oh, it's
uh,
such
Beauty album, 1970. It's
yeah.
just really the direction the band was going in, and some of the, I guess I would call them jazz fusion songs of the mid 70s, with different players, like Pigpen died and they brought in Keith and Donna Godshaw to kind of fill up that gap. And
Mhm.
then Keith and Donna left in 79, 80, and then Brent came in. There's organ again, not boogie woogie piano. So there's
Yeah, yeah.
different styles and different way. They brought back the same songs. They were playing some songs, but differently. So like, and then, Brad died and Vince Welnick's there and some Bruce Hornsby as well in the early 90s. And even then, things changed. They brought back a couple songs and reworked them. So, like when Terrapin Flyer is getting together to play put a set together, it's like, okay, what year are we playing? Is this 72? Are we going to do
Mhm.
91, 83? It's like, it's serious. It's like so at playing this band, YouTube is such a great tool for researching, like anything you need to learn, you can find on YouTube. So I've spent a lot of time on YouTube, just reviewing shows, things, how they do different things. So I don't know. I feel like I deserve some kind of degree if I have to
Grateful
read
Deadology.
and it's not just knowing a song, it's knowing how you're going to play that song, how you're going to present it with the other guys, and what feel, slow, fast, it's all so much to it. And that makes it fun. It almost makes every song fresh again. Bob Dylan will play songs that have been hits for years, but he'll change everything about them. You don't recognize them at first. He's like,
Oh yeah.
oh, that's All Over Now, Baby Blue. I didn't recognize that way. It's not that extreme, but yeah, there's quite a lot of different ways of playing the same song within the same band that you're covering with the Grateful Dead. You know.
Well, yeah, that's the one thing about the Dead, though, is that they were always evolving. They were always they're always finding new ways to express, they're always finding new ways to express the same idea. And
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of that is because of just how much thought and intention they put in every single one of their songs. I mean, that was oh man, I forget the name of the book. It was like the unanointed like compendium. It just had like basically
Uh-huh.
every song, lyrics, chords, and it basically like little backstories, and then it would go over like all the lyrics as well, and like point out all the cultural references and just like little things that they hid in there.
Yeah.
And I mean, just that much intention and like thought put into your songs, like those songs are gonna be around forever because they put so much thought into it. And I feel like because they did that, it makes people particularly like with their storytelling. There's songs that are like stories, but they're still kind of vague. It allows people to project their experiences on them a lot more than some of the other bands of that era.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, there was always heavy thought going into their songs, and you know, there are songs that they only played for several years, and then took them out of rotation for whatever reason. Maybe they just never felt it was as strong as other tunes or not. But
Right.
everyone has their favorites, and people miss some of those songs. To be fair, in the same respect. But then again, you only have so much time to present a show. You can't do them all. I don't know how many hundreds of songs the Grateful Dead, you know, wrote and performed, but it's quite substantial. Yeah, and that Grateful Dead compendium you're talking about, yeah, I've seen copies of that, and it's like a roadmap to all their songs and all their shows.
Oh
It's
yeah.
really
Yeah, it was my, designated bathroom book for, like, 5 years because I'd always find myself, like, sitting down and reading it, and, I'd be done pooping, in like, 10 minutes, but I'd still be, like, reading like, "Oh, I I didn't know that, that's interesting." Um, so let me ask you, just with that much of an influence, from the Dead on you, when you started writing music, how did you go about, like, constructing a song? Like, what was your process like?
I've always been kind of like melody and lyrics at the same time. I'll come up with some kind of an idea. I don't write like just to have like a title of a song and try to write around that. I try to tell a story usually in my
Mhm.
songwriting. And a lot of it does come from personal experience, especially being on the road as much as I was in the mid 2000s, not well, mid 2000s. Well,
Right.
between like 2005 to 15 or so, being on the road a lot, really gave me a lot of inspiration and things to write about. You know, just funny things that happen. Uh, People's shoes smell, or stinky shoes, or I woke up and I'm still in the passenger seat. I got a craving for coffee and I want something sweet to eat, and, it's just passing through another town and a lot of them look the same. It's things that I've experienced that are just, other guys in the band who had at times, very, had committed relationships at home while I was single. I'd write songs for them, it's like,
Yeah.
how it feels leaving your loved one, yeah, and just, coming back home and you're going to see you, things are going to be great, this is just what you do. And, lady understands. And then you go out and you come back and, write songs about that too. Or understanding,
Yeah,
having a
yeah.
hard time understanding those things. It's all fodder for your first songwriting. I try to be a little autobiographical. You know.
Yeah, especially like being out on the road like that, like your highs are at their highest and your lows are at their lowest. I mean,
Mhm.
when you feel that, that feeling of loneliness or, regret if you got a family that you're not there with. I mean, I could only imagine, being on the road for so many years and, missing a kid's first steps or something along those lines.
Sure.
And, and I don't know, I feel like, it allows you to reach an emotional depth when you're writing that, unless you've been on the road for an extended period of time, like people don't understand that.
It's true. And people don't understand if they haven't actually experienced it. And then the road isn't for everyone either. It's a lot of, long hours and little sleep.
Hmm.
But then touring around the country, I felt like I always wanted to be looking out the window. It's always a change of scene every day.
Yeah.
It's like that's the motivating factor. We used to joke that we played music to fund our traveling uh, uh, Jones, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess let me ask you, since you've traveled around the country and you've pretty much been to every state, um, I guess what were some of the things that even if it's just like people you've met, certain towns that just the environment just kind of rang through you. What are some of the things that you found most inspiring on the road?
People's hospitality and their being grateful for what we did. We're just doing what we love to do, and people just it really makes their life. I think one of the most profound things I've heard from a number of different people is when they come to see our show, they're going to church. I'm like, I was raised Catholic, and I kind of split that at a young age. My mom still is a practicing, Catholic, and I ask her what she get. What she gets out of going to church. She says, I get a feeling like I've been revived, I've been renewed. And it's like that's the way I feel by performing music or I go see the Grateful Dead, or I go see a live concert. I feel invigorated.
Right,
So
right.
like people saying you know, I take it to heart when people say, oh, we're going to church. We're coming to see your show. I'm like, wow, that's a high compliment. I feel, because it really makes them feel refreshed and rejuvenated. And I think that's like going back to what I said. I think being a musician, being in the arts is a noble cause, but because it does help people forget about their troubles for a minute, and gets them back smiling, up and dancing, ready to face the next day, whatever their troubles and trials are. They can go on. I guess and right now people need that more than ever. And
Oh yeah.
starting to open up, but it's got to take time and it's got to be done right. I just saw some stuff on Facebook today how Illinois is leading the country and the largest decrease of new cases.
Yeah.
And I see people all over. Chicago's large, the Chicago and the metropolitan area, 12 million people, in the including suburbs and the entire city. And I see a lot of people in the inner city where I live wearing masks. They're opening up things a little bit, and I'm still going to wear a mask for a while because I feel like I am not getting sick, and I have other people in my life that have compromised immune systems, and just it's better not to associate outside of a small circle of friends.
Hmm.
But just simple things like wearing a mask and sanitizing, just washing your hands, I think actually goes a long way. People can argue, but I feel like I'm comfortable around people with masks. I mean, the pandemic is not over.
Yeah.
This illness has not gone away, but I'm also eager at the same time to get back on the road, get back into clubs and start playing. But I feel it has to be safely done. And then other states around us here have opened up more freely, and I don't want to play there. It's just
Yeah.
don't trust people are going to be safe, and I don't want to get sick and pass that along to anyone else I know. So
Yeah, no, that's completely understandable. I mean, if you're going by, we'll just use the Spanish flu as example. Let's say we closely, even to a little bit, follow that trend. The second wave of the Spanish flu was 10 times more people dead than the first wave. So let's say, let's say it just follows that trend. We're looking at another million folks added to that death toll.
uh,
So,
I know.
and I'm just going to go off on a rant here because, this is something that I feel a little passionate about. A lot of the folks who are refusing to wear masks, refusing to, contribute to the common good, they want to call themselves patriots. Well, let me tell you, folks, if patriotism is about sacrifice. It's about sacrificing for your countrymen. It's about sacrificing for your neighbor. It's about inconveniencing yourself to protect and serve others that you share this great nation with. If you're not even willing to sacrifice wearing a mask to go out in public, to go to the store, then you're not a patriot. Don't call yourself a patriot because you're not willing to sacrifice for your fellow citizens. So, folks, be a patriot, wear a mask, because that is what is going to that's what's going to keep these waves low. And Illinois has been real strict on their mask policy,
Uh-huh.
and I didn't really think that it was going to have the effect that it did. But Illinois
Mhm.
is one of the only it is the only state that is meeting all the federal guidelines to reopen. And you know what? We're
Yeah.
doing it slow, and it's an inconvenience, but it's something that needs to be done.
And it's done with good leadership too. Our Governor Pritzker, here's another billionaire
Yeah.
governing our state. He's done a really great job, I think, from the start. When I listened to him talk, he was doing a lot of public addresses, telling what's going
Right.
on, the figures. He made me feel like I'm getting some answers, and I understand what's going on, versus other leadership, and wasn't thinking about opening up the economy before it was time, and had the taxpayers' best interest in mind. At
Right.
least I felt that way listening to him talk, and I think he's done, and the results are showing that he's been doing a great job. Like we are the only state that meets all the qualifications, and like I said, what I just read today is that we have the largest decrease in new cases. We'll see what happens. We're in like another phase of opening up some stuff, outdoor restaurants and whatnot. I'm still going to stay away from that for a while. Try to support my community in other ways if I can. On the virtual platforms and
Yeah,
whatnot, and
absolutely.
whatever I can do. And like I said, it's at this point in time with COVID-19, if you don't know someone who's been affected by it, someone who's actually died, you're lucky, because I know a lot, several people who have died from it. Other people have been infected, and it's really impacted their lives. And it is a real thing, and it is really serious. And we should all just kind of just chill and just go, just wear a face mask. It's not that restrictive. If you find find a more comfortable wearing one, you can, just a little bit goes a long way. And
Yeah.
it is what you said, being a patriot. You're caring about others, putting your others over just yourself.
Yeah, and I don't know. When it comes to Pritzker, I voted for him just because Rauner he was probably the worst governor in Illinois history, hands down.
Yeah.
But you know what? I voted for him. I really didn't have any high hopes because, he was a billionaire. And
Right.
you usually don't think folks like that give two dimes about what happens to fellas like me. But he has, there's nothing I could say that. There's nothing I could say ill of how he's governed so far. Yeah, I'm gonna have to pay a little bit more in taxes, a little bit more for a sticker, but you know what? If it helps bring the state back in the state's budget back into balance, then absolutely, I'll pay my fair share.
Hmm. And there's a lot of other reforms that have to happen in the state's budget as well. But
Oh, absolutely. We need to have
but as
pension
far as
reform
doing this
pronto.
I feel, he's done a really good job, and I feel like I can trust the man, just by his actions and his sincerity. Maybe
Right.
he is sincere, but whatever. But
Well, the
stuff.
way that Washington handled its response to COVID,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, without federal leadership, it forced governors to put up or shut up. And you
Yeah.
know what? The governors that were willing to trail their own way, you're seeing the results in their states. They didn't allow themselves to be bullied. They didn't allow themselves to be pushed around. And Illinois is one of the safer ones. Now, granted, I'm sure that because of the protests, I personally think all the cases that we're seeing now were still from the Memorial Day weekend. So,
Yeah.
give it about 2-3 more weeks, we'll see where we're sitting at. But even if cases in Illinois skyrocket again, I have confidence that we'll be able to respond correctly.
Yeah. And, from what I watched, videos and pics and stuff like that, it's like people who are protesting are wearing masks and doing it in a
Yeah.
respectful way. Yeah, there's been some rioting and looting, and there's been some outside agitation involved. To what extent, don't know exactly, but that's also a different problem. We have systemic racism going on at the same time. All Black Lives Matter, and they do, man. It's, we had the civil rights movement in the 60s and nothing has changed. And then there were riots here in Chicago in the late 60s. Down the west side, neighborhoods burned down, still
Yeah.
burned down. Nothing's happened in these neighborhoods, and that's got to stop, man. It's not fair. And anyone says, well, all lives matter, it's like you're not really listening, or you don't care. You're someone of privilege and you're afraid of losing that privilege, and you should be. But everyone should have the privileges people have. You shouldn't have to worry about driving around getting pulled over. You should not have to worry about going on a road trip and seeing the country just based on the color of your skin. These are things that are inherently wrong in our country and have been since the start. But I'm not going to go off too much on that. I get a lot of backlash anytime I post anything, but but as I like to post things that are helping the regular people. Helping everyone is helping yourself.
And I think that's the biggest issue I have with America today is that it's gone from individuality to just selfishness now. I mean, I don't believe that, saying Black Lives Matter and supporting equal rights, that's not going to make my privilege go away.
Mm-hmm.
A rising tide lifts all boats. You're not going to lose something just because someone else is given an equal opportunity. If you have an equal opportunity, you still have the exact same opportunity everybody else has. So utilize it.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to, and that should be given. We shouldn't even have a debate about that. Everyone should have.
Well, I don't know. It's just, I feel like with all these divisions, like, once again, just to kind of backtrack, that's the importance of music. And I mean, even connected to the community that music builds, because I mean, you go to a bluegrass festival and, I'm one of the most liberal guys out there. And, I can find myself connecting with people from, across the cultural spectrum that you wouldn't have the ability to meet with. And I think that's one of the things that live music does, is that we were talking earlier about COVID, about how people don't believe something until they, directly experience it, or the consequences of something, right? I feel like that's why live music is so important, is because it allows people to come together and experience cultures from people from all over this country. You go to a big music festival that's, 20, 30,000 people, you're going to meet someone from pretty much every state. You're going to meet people that you've never, dreamed of meeting before. So especially these more rural areas where, folks don't have that direct experience, getting them out to experience it. You start, what was it? It was Summer Camp Music Festival. So I met this guy, and this was probably like my third or fourth year there. And I met this guy. It was his first time going to a music festival ever. It was his brother-in-law invited him to come along, and he was like marrying the guy's sister. And, he's a pretty, pretty like polo khakis wearing fella. So his brother-in-law, or his future brother-in-law, invites him out, and they're doing this, basically like his bachelor, party weekend, right? And he had been completely isolated. You'd tell in this like kind of small town. He had never been experienced anything like that. And seeing that guy at the beginning of the weekend versus the end of the weekend, you could just see the transformation. You can just see like all the stress and like preconceived notions they have just run off of them. I mean, it's a beautiful sight to see when you see like someone like evolving and progressing in front of your eyes.
Yeah, it's something that everyone should experience. Everyone should go to a large music festival with like tens of thousands of people, experience, get out of your norm, it would make a world of difference, I think it would help people understand that people are different, but the same. And what am I saying? Different, equal, people come from all walks of life in this country, but we are all equal, and don't be afraid to meet people. Don't be afraid to learn. It seems like that's what's stifled in our country a little bit. You know what? My phone's about to die, and I've got my girlfriend coming over. So I'm going to have to kind of get going here pretty soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I figured this was going to be a shorter one as well. So I guess
I've enjoyed talking to you, man. This is great.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely have you on in the future. We'll talk about, maybe once everything clears up, what you guys want to do. Because one of the questions I did actually have planned for you is for
Uh-huh.
the 20th anniversary. Are you guys going to be doing anything special? Maybe a stream, something along those lines?
Well, in January we did do our 20th anniversary celebration show at Martyrs. Here we go again. I mean, we did 2 or 3, I did 3 years there. We had a Wednesday residency there as well. And that's where we had our winter or our seasonal holiday shows around between Thanksgiving and Christmas and stuff.
Mhm.
We did that for years there as well. Always bringing in other bands to, bluegrass and Americana bands to, open up for us and bring them in, have them sit in with us, sit in with them as well. But yeah, we did that in, I can't remember the exact date. It was like the second week of January this year. So at least we were able to do that. We didn't plan it for around this time of year, and
Yeah, yeah.
we're trying to get something else going as well in the fall. We'll see what happens there.
Well, I mean, if you guys are looking to do another live stream fundraiser for Martyrs, I think a reunion stream would be phenomenal.
Sure.
I would
Yeah.
even throw that up on my projector on the big screen.
All right, cool.
All right. So, before we go ahead and get off, did you have any other events, anything coming up that you particularly wanted to plug? Any other future endeavors?
Well, with Terrapin Flyer, we're going to try another live stream fundraiser in about 2 weeks. It'll probably be on a Sunday as well.
Mhm.
Um, we'll just kind of have to keep that posted. If you keep an eye on my Facebook, I'll make sure we'll put something up there. But right now, everything's up in the air. I mean, there are every weekend I have my notification on my calendar that says I have a show. It's like that's been canceled. It's just, it's a big wait and see. I call this period of time the big unknown.
Mhm.
Great unknown is the period of time we're in right now. So we just have to see what happens, and hopefully we'll be able to get the music venues and festivals opened up this year. We'll see. I hope something. I
Yeah.
like this distancing ideas and stuff like that. These live streams, I think, is where it's at the moment. So, but if we can just hang in there, we'll get back. We'll get back to touring.
Yep, and you know what? You just have to hope that when the dust settles and everything calms down from COVID, that those venues they're going to be prepared to open. They're still going to be around. A lot of these festivals, you hope that they're still going to be around. But you know what, folks? It's up to us to make sure that these places are still around. So if you have the ability to go ahead and donate to Martyrs, reach out to some of the festivals that might be struggling. Now's the time to buy an old T-shirt. Any kind of revenue will help them out and keep these venues and different events there for the future. This has been Dave with Cornmeal, Terrapin Flyer, and a bunch of other bands. As far as Cornmeal goes, make sure to check out their website. It has a link directly to their archive. That is cornmealinthekitchen.com to view dozens and dozens of concerts and live recordings. And, if you don't want to have the background noise of the concerts going, then make sure you pick up that studio album Slow Street because, that has been one of my staples of just having a CD in the car just to kind of leave in the CD player because I never use my CD player, but when I'm driving out of town, once the radio fades, I'll just kind of hit it on, and I never know what's going to be in there. But at Slow Street is always one of the classics that I leave in there.
Right on, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, and I don't know, I guess before we get off, social media wise, is there any specific handle you prefer to people to reach out to you at, or should they just go to the Cornmeal in the Kitchen website?
You can go to Cornmeal in the Kitchen, but my personal Facebook is Wavy Dave Burlingame. It's WAVY. There's no E in the word wavy. So Wavy Dave Burlingame at Facebook. You could find it pretty easily. I'm pretty sure. There's a picture of my face on it. So
It'll pop right up. So you know what, folks, go ahead and reach out to them, show your support. This was going to be their 20th year touring, and I mean, it just kind of is a bummer that I missed the show in January. It's just kind of a bummer I'm not going to be able to see you guys on your 20th anniversary. But um, still show support to those venues, show support to those festivals. And you know what, folks, even though you might be isolated right now, things might seem uncertain, things might be a little bit scary. Just take a moment, reach back, and remember one of those first times experiencing live music and that joy that helped you or that helped you kind of, I don't know, what would you say the Dead said it was? Feed your soul?
Yes.
Soothe your
So,
soul. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, remember, folks, when times are uncertain and sad, go ahead and take a moment to remember those good memories, seeing live music, and soothe your soul. Good night, folks.
right.